A main event of WrestleMania is a special thing. Those who partake can be reduced to tears, while those who are never given the chance may grow bitter and cold. Unfortunately, there are only 38 Mania main events to go around. I mean, 39 or 40, wait a minute. 41 and counting Mania main events. Stupid two-night Manias. And for as much as WWE like to tout for a generation that their shows had 4 main events, proper main event status has always been saved for those who close the shows. WrestleMania is the biggest show of the year, and there are many wrestlers who should have a WrestleMania main event on their resume. Some still have a chance before their careers are done, and for some, we can only look back and wish for better. These are 10 WWE stars who should have main evented WrestleMania. And before we get on with our list, make sure of course that you like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss a fun list just like it, and make sure to check out the plethora of WrestleMania content we've had right here on the channel this month. Number 10, Seth Rollins. Yes, I know, technically, Seth did main event WrestleMania 31 via his legendary Money in the Bank cash-in during the Roman Reigns vs. Brock Lesnar match. But realistically, as amazing as that moment was, and I truly would not change it for the world, it doesn't quite qualify as a main event for Seth friggin' Rollins the same way it does for Roman and Brock or any other Mania main eventer. Now, the question becomes, when should these re-envisioned WrestleMania main events take place? There is a level of fantasy booking here at times, like with our first entry. Some of the folks on this list will have had a match that would have made for a pretty good main event, while others are a bit harder to argue for, thus creating a need to change history. In Seth's case, it is difficult to argue that his matches at WrestleManias 33 through 38 would have made for a better main event than what we got. However, I will reiterate until my dying day that it is completely mad that the Shield Triple Threat match never main evented WrestleMania. WrestleMania 33 would have been an ideal time to have the match if all 3 men were kept strong following the 2016 brand split, but more importantly, it would have given arguably WWE's best in-ring performer of the last few years a WrestleMania main event with his name on the marquee. Number 9, Shinsuke Nakamura. Now this one is a lot clearer cut. In retrospect, one of the most unsatisfying WrestleMania main events of all time may well have been WrestleMania 34's closer between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. Oh, and don't worry, I also had to stop and think exactly which of the 7 billion matches the pair had this one was. Now, I will acknowledge that the WWE Championship match between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura was also quite unsatisfying, but I don't know, maybe if it was the main event of WrestleMania, given a bit more time to get out of second gear, and didn't feature an ill-thought-out Nakamura heel turn, it could have had a better chance to be the classic Mania match we all hoped it would be. Nakamura, the Royal Rumble winner, becoming the first ever Japanese WWE champion in the main event of WrestleMania, could have been a huge moment to send the fans home a lot happier than they ended up being, having hate-watched Roman and Brock. Number 8, Diesel. I feel like the first 3 entries on this list are going to make the actually part of the comment section especially vocal, but hey, anything for the algorithm, and I love you all equally. That being said, allow me to explain our choices, including this one. Rewinding about 20 years prior to Vince's Roman Reigns mega babyface experiment came the prototype for such a strategy, Big Daddy Cool Diesel. The 6'10" bodyguard for HBK Shawn Michaels was seen as a top guy in waiting by Vinnie Mac, and it wasn't long before he pulled the trigger and pushed Diesel to the WWF Championship in late 1994. Fast forward to the following year's WrestleMania and a clash with his former protectee, HBK, who had earned a WWF title shot via his 1995 Royal Rumble win. While this seems on paper to be a perfect storyline to close a WrestleMania, with 2 of the WWF's next generation of main eventers taking center stage, the decision was instead made to grant Bam Bam Bigelow and 2-time Super Bowl winner Lawrence Taylor that distinction. While this match was a good celebrity angle and something that does have its place on a Mania card, there was no guarantee that it would be any good. So to put it in the main event, over the WWE Championship, that's a huge risk, and one that didn't quite blow up in their face, but one that probably should have been avoided anyway. Number 7, Asuka. Now that we've got 2-night WrestleManias and WWE is thus able to have 2 Mania main events each year, there is an opportunity to give that sweet Night 1 main event to some of the very much deserving wrestlers on their roster, the Empress of Tomorrow being among them. Currently, the list of women to main event a WrestleMania is only 5 names long. Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Sasha Banks, and Bianca Belair to date are the only ones to close out WWE's show of shows, and there are a number of women who should join them. Rhea Ripley may soon be added to the list, but Asuka has been too good for too long to not have earned such a spot for herself. When this should have taken place is difficult to say exactly. I could contradict myself and say Asuka and Charlotte could have main evented WrestleMania 34 over Brock and Roman, or Styles and Nakamura. Of course, you would have to fix the finish of that match to warrant it. Again, what were they thinking? Shinsuke and Asuka both losing. What is your problem, Vince? Spiting Triple H and NXT truly was his favorite pastime. But whether it was in 2018 as the first women's main event or any time since then, Asuka has always been worthy of a place among the company's very best. Number 6, Jeff Hardy. In an ideal world, the top good guy should face the top bad guy in the main event of WrestleMania. You could absolutely make the argument that in late 2008 and 2009, Jeff Hardy was WWE's top good guy. He main evented SummerSlam 2009 and was WWE champion when the calendar ticked over from 08 to 09, and at that time, there were big plans for Hardy and a returning star from his past. For those who don't know, the original plan for Jeff Hardy's mystery assailant leading up to the 2009 Royal Rumble was not supposed to be his brother Matt. Rather, the man who tampered with Jeff's pyro, ran him off the road, and attacked him in a stairwell the night of Survivor Series was meant to be the returning Christian, and a story that would continue with the members of the first ever tag team ladder match leading up to WrestleMania 25. Why didn't that happen? Well, because fans figured it out. Chants of "We Want Christian" rang out, and thus WWE changed course, had Matt attack his brother, with the WWE Championship match ending up on the Triple H Randy Orton program for Mania. That match sucked. Instead, allow us to rewrite history so that Christian did indeed attack Jeff Hardy in his return to WWE, setting up a more favorable WWE main event match for WrestleMania involving WWE's hottest babyface and the rest of this menagerie of TLC combatants. Number 5, Rey Mysterio. The soon-to-be WWE Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio was the story of WWE in early 2006, outlasting 29 other men to win that year's Royal Rumble, riding the emotional wave of support following Eddie Guerrero's untimely death months prior. So with such an emotional story in tow, you would expect it to be the closer of WrestleMania 22, right? Especially compared to that year's actual main event between Triple H and John Cena, a match built around the idea of rock versus rap. Granted, a star pairing, however one that lacked the same narrative weight that Rey's quest for the gold did. Even worse, the eventual triple threat world heavyweight title match between Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, and Rey Mysterio didn't even hit the 10-minute mark. A fun watch for sure, but one that, given the story that preceded it, could have received more time and easily could have closed the show. Mysterio would obviously feature in many Mania matches after this, however would never come close to another sniff at the main event. A missed opportunity for sure. Number 4, Eddie Guerrero. Speaking of missed opportunity, while nobody could have foretold Eddie's untimely passing, it is a crime that Eddie Guerrero never got to close a WrestleMania. The closest Guerrero came was of course 2004, where fresh off defeating Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship at No Way Out, Eddie walked into Mania 20 as champ, defending against Kurt Angle. It wouldn't have had to be at that Mania that Eddie main evented, as it's hard to argue that the world title triple threat wasn't the right choice on that night, but Eddie Guerrero is simply one of those people that WrestleMania itself would have benefited from having its main event at some point. You could also make the argument, with hindsight being what it is, that having Eddie and Kurt close out WrestleMania 20 would make that show a lot easier to rewatch for obvious reasons, but there's a contingent of the comments section that seem to get real riled up when you suggest changing any great Benoit moments, so instead I'm just gonna move on. Number 3, Dean Ambrose. As mentioned in our first entry, the fact that both Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose failed to close a WrestleMania while the big dog has managed to close out 5, with a 6 not far off, is a crying shame. While Reigns has undoubtedly earned that right, in recent years anyway, many of his main event appearances were distinctly unworthy in retrospect, take Mania 32 for example, Ambrose was clearly the more over of the two and could and should have challenged Triple H for the strap. I was at Roadblock, I know firsthand how great their match was. But no, it was Reigns. Ambrose instead got squashed by a grumpy Brock Lesnar. Again, I am drawn back to WrestleMania 33. I will bang the Shield triple threat drum all day long because it is simply inconceivable that after all the hype that went into drafting Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose first and second to Raw and SmackDown in 2016, by the time we got to Mania, Dean was defending the IC title against Baron Corbin on the pre-show. And you know what's worse? This was Ambrose's final Mania appearance, missing 34 due to a triceps tear and sitting out on 35 due to his impending WWE exit. The fact that WWE never took the chance to pull the trigger on an all-Shield triple threat world title match at WrestleMania is simply inconceivable. Inconceivable, I say. Number 2, Ric Flair. Now this one, I mean seriously, what were they thinking? Fresh off winning perhaps still the greatest Royal Rumble in history in 1992, Ric Flair was headed into WrestleMania as WWF champion and carrying a ton of momentum as the company's new top heel. Flair was a truly one-of-a-kind attraction, and for the first time, WWF had a potential blockbuster match to end all blockbuster matches in their grasp: Flair versus Hogan. The wrestling world's two undeniably biggest stars, the grandest stage of them all, the WWF Championship. Wow, truly one for the ages. The stage was set, and what a match it was, and they didn't do it. Instead, bafflingly keeping Flair and Hogan separate so they could book Flair versus Randy Savage in an admittedly great match, and Hogan versus Sid Justice. Oh, and to make matters even worse, it was Hogan and Sid that closed out the show, not the WWF Championship match. This still infuriates me to no end. No wonder Flair didn't hang around long enough to get the chance to main event another WrestleMania during his peak. By the time Flair was back competing at WrestleMania, his time in the main event was sadly long gone. Out of all the omissions, this one is still potentially the most baffling. Number 1.5, Sami Zayn and the Usos. This is my plea to WWE for this weekend. After all the work that has been done on this Bloodline story, Sami Zayn and the Usos truly deserve to close out night one of WrestleMania 39. Kevin Owens has a Mania main event under his belt, but there is no match more deserving of that spotlight this year than this tag match. And what a distinction this could have, serving as the first time the WWE tag titles would ever have been defended in a WrestleMania main event. Make it happen, WWE. Please and thank you. And number 1, CM Punk. You know what? I'm starting to see a parallel between Flair and our final entry. While Flair was overshadowed by Hogan during his WWF title run, the same could easily be said for CM Punk throughout much of his time as WWE champion between 2011 and 2013, constantly being portrayed as a lesser attraction than John Cena. This was evident on numerous occasions in 2012. Just look at any pay-per-view in the first half of the year. Cena was constantly above Punk in the card, despite not carrying WWE's top prize. Hell, Cena versus John Laurinaitis at Over the Limit 2012 main evented over CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan, and I simply do not have the breath necessary to express my distaste for that nonsense. Anyway, back to WrestleMania, the year Punk held the WWE title was unfortunately the year that big Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and John Cena had booked the Mania main event a year in advance, so naturally Punk and Jericho never stood a chance of being given that nod. However, what was worse than that was the year prior in 2011, where WWE overlooked Punk as the antagonist to Super Cena in the Mania 27 main event in favor of The Miz. A terrible match that I will never, ever rewatch. You can't make me. I won't watch it on Worst Match Ever, Luke. You won't make me! And then in 2013, Punk was used as nothing more than a prop in the eventual rematch between Dwayne and John, when WWE could have very easily done the right thing and booked a triple threat instead of the extremely predictable singles match we got instead. Punk just gets his Mania main event. Who knows what the last 8 years look like. And that's our list. If you enjoyed it, make sure you click that like button, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss a fun list just like it. And click the link above so you can check out the latest edition of Survival Series.
Too early. Ding.
Ding. Hey, don't you take my ding from me.
You've taken everything from me, Tempest.
I've taken nothing from you. You've got no strikes.
That's right. All business. Total box office.